Happy Monday. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here today, co-host of After the Bell on Fox Business, Melissa Francis, Democratic strategist Julie Roginski, radio talk show host Meghan McCain, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, Judge Alex Ferrer, bringing some Florida up in the house. He is outnumbered. Good to have you.
It's always good to be here. Thanks.
We are going to lean heavily on your legal expertise.
I will hold you up.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. Let's get to this first one. Donald Trump gets set to make that speech he promised on illegal immigration. It's now set for this Wednesday in Arizona. The announcement follows a week of speculation that he might be softening his plan to deport 11 million illegal immigrants. And in what may have been a preview, the GOP presidential nominee gave a hard-edged message on immigration in Iowa over the weekend. Insists he has held firm all along on illegal immigration.
So what he has said is very consistent, Chris. Number one, and this is important, the signature piece of his legislation and his campaign has always been build the wall. That has not changed. Build the wall. No amnesty. We all learned in kindergarten to stand in line to wait our turn. He is saying that as well.
This is a guy who's been very consistent on no amnesty, no legalization for folks who have been coming to the country illegally.
Nothing has changed about Donald Trump's position on dealing with illegal immigration. He put this issue at the center of this presidential campaign in the Republican primaries. And his position and his principles have been absolutely consistent.
All right, so I put myself in the shoes of you, Judge, and I just listened to the words, and what they're saying is nothing has changed about the policy, and that would mean just the way he says it has changed, which feels political. So he may not be in hot water here, but what do you think?
Well, what I really think is that during campaign, people make all kinds of promises and statements based on what they believe and what they feel. And then as time develops and they get more information, I think they start to realize there are harsh realities and difficulties of implementing what you originally promised. And I think that he's looking at the reality of deporting 11 million people like that, or separating kids from their family, or
sending them all,
or sending them all, and realizing that is a big task for anybody to do. And I think he's looking at it and saying, okay, well, you know what? There are a lot of street gangs, a lot of Mexican street gangs terrorizing L.A. and other cities across the country. We can focus on the real bad criminals first, get them out, and then let the policy develop. But the people who follow Trump, the people who think that immigration, open border immigration like we kind of have now, is a serious problem, they're still going to side with him, even if he changes a little bit. What I'm amazed at is when when Obama and Hillary changed their position on gay marriage, they're evolving. But when Trump changes his position slightly, he's flip-flopping. And that's just the way the media does it.
Well, part of the issue for Donald Trump, though, may be that the 66,000 or so that he's targeting who are criminals, that's kind of President Obama's current plan. So it's not just that he's changing his plan, Meghan, it's that it looks decidedly like what's already in place. Do you think that there is added pressure for Donald Trump, if he gets in office, to do something on immigration that looks decidedly different from Obama?
I mean, ever since he came down the escalator in Trump Tower, this is the cornerstone of his plan, of who he is, of what he's ran on. Even his surrogates, Mayor Giuliani was on Fox and Friends this morning, and even he seemed a little muddled. Mike Pence did, I think, a very poor job trying to explain this. He's got a lot, Donald Trump has a lot of explaining to do, obviously, come on Wednesday when he's making the speech in Arizona. I think what's confusing for everyone is, at one point he said, we're deporting everyone. Even we're going to separate families, which a lot of us were like, what, are you going to go into neighborhoods and separate babies from their mothers? And now he himself says he's softening. The problem is he's reached a 40% base, and or ceiling, excuse me, the base of his supporters who have supported him from day one. People like Sarah Palin and Ann Coulter are coming out hard against him right now. This is, as I've said, an extremely emotional issue for people. And if he hedges just a little bit, he's Amnesty Dawn, which is a hashtag that was trending on Twitter earlier today.
So what does he do? How does he keep kind of with the, as Mike Pence said, Governor Pence said, keep with the flavor, if you will, that the fabric of what he had put out there early on, yet play the politics of, you know, putting it in a term that might move him to the middle?
See, I think this may be more clever than we're giving him credit for, and maybe it's something that was hatched by his team, and you got to think that everything that's coming out of his mouth right now has been focus grouped to death. I feel like now his statement, I mean, his position on immigration is like ink blots. You look at it and you see in it what you want to. You could make it into almost anything. So for people who are listening and are like, well, I liked him, but I didn't, this idea that we were going to ship people back home made me really nervous. He's kind of softened. For the hardcore people, I think they might be thinking, well, he's going to say anything right now to get elected, and good for him, go for it, and get elected. And Ann Coulter, what's she going to do? Go vote for Hillary Clinton? I don't think so.
I don't think she's going to vote for Hillary Clinton, but I think if you're, and again, this is not my issue. It's not the one that I vote on primarily, but I think for a lot of these people, they feel a little confused and betrayed. He came out the harshest of any modern candidate in history. And now to hedge and even say you're softening, when they showed that Sean Hannity town hall, there was a visceral reaction from the audience. And I think you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose, as the old adage says. All of that being said, I think this looks like a flip-flop, and he's got to be real clear on Wednesday when he makes this speech.
All right, Julie, we haven't heard from you on this issue. We also haven't heard Hillary Clinton give her own speech on immigration.
She's been very clear on immigration. In fact, she's been incredible. You go to her website, she tells you exactly what she's going to do.
I'm just saying the big speech,
she has been given speeches repeatedly to Latino communities and others about her immigration policies, and Donald Trump has been slamming her on it, so we all know they're very aware of what's going on. Look, the problem for Donald Trump is exactly what Megan said, and Melissa, I disagree. I think it's the opposite of a strategy. I think it is the most muddled rollout I've ever seen. Go do the speech. Tell us what you're going to do. But this mix of messages from Pence, from Christie, from Giuliani, he's going to soften, he's not going to soften. Poor Kellyanne Conway, who I love. I don't know how she's even dealing with all of this. If you're going to do a speech, go to Arizona and give the speech. For the last 2 weeks, we've seen 20 different messages come at you, and that's not how you run a presidential campaign. You're angering everybody. You're not going to keep the people who want immigration reform happy, and you're about to really offend, as you said, the Ann Coulters, the Jeff Sessions, the Sarah Palins, the people who put their faith in you and trust in you when you came down that escalator.
Melissa said, who are they really going to vote for?
They could stay home. That's what they're going to do.
Okay.
That's
newly released emails raising even more questions about possible pay-to-play when it comes to Hillary Clinton's State Department and the Clinton Family Charity. Emails first obtained by Citizens United show efforts by the Clinton Foundation donors to get seats at an official State Department lunch with the president of China. In one case, someone even requested a seat at Vice President Joe Biden's table. The president of Citizens United saying this is just the beginning.
Look, the Clintons sell access. They've been selling access since the 90s. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, they need to hold a joint press conference to answer questions about what was going on at the foundation and where the State Department ends and the foundation begins.
But Hillary's campaign is pushing back, saying in a statement, quote, as the State Department said last week, the department's actions under Secretary Clinton were always taken with the intent to advance our foreign policy interests and with no other intent in mind than that. Citizens United is a right-wing group that has been attacking the Clintons since the 1990s and once again is trying to make something out of nothing. All of this, of course, coming after the Associated Press reported that they did a report that found that more than half of the people from private interests who met with then Secretary of State Clinton gave a lot of money to the foundation. Harris, I will add to that. So ABC did a big story on it this week. They showed that one of those people, the president of UBS, who was trying to get next to the president of China at the luncheon, this is also something where after he gave money to the foundation, Hillary Clinton intervened and negotiated a sweetheart settlement with the Swiss for tax evasion for UPS. After that, donations to the Clinton Foundation went higher and higher.
All right. So
it's endless.
That's
it's endless.
Exhibit 1.
It's Exhibit 5,000.
All right? It's Exhibit 1. And so last night on Fox Report, what we were talking about with the Fox News political insiders was, if Donald Trump enumerated some of these instances in what you would call evidence in court and just did a commercial spot on each one between now and November, it would leave a huge divot. Like my golf game on one of those nice golf courses down in Florida is so bad. A huge divot in what she's trying to do. These numbers between the two of them are still yet very tight as we get closer to the election. So something like this could really change it. And it wouldn't depend on whether or not Democrats or independents believed or felt like this issue resonated. It would be on the facts and the evidence.
Right. And he shouldn't have to do that, because that really...
Well, who should be doing it?
The media should be doing that, because they would, if the shoe was on the other foot, they would be doing it. Because, the reality is, does it fall under the confines? So far, the information they have about connections doesn't, of course, make out a case for bribery. But it's really close. It's
How
really
close is it?
Well, I mean, bribery is typically the offering or receiving or soliciting of something of some value in order to influence a decision of a
So
public
real
official.
quickly, with the example that Melissa
So
just gave,
it's
do
like
you look at the
there.
timing between what was given and the meeting or the favor that was had? Like, what decides it?
Yes, you look at all of the circumstances, because typically a bribery case is made out of circumstantial evidence. And like in Miami, we have an independent agency that whenever a public official is involved in something that looks suspicious, the agency comes in and looks and investigates. Nobody is investigating this. This is so in your face. There could be, money for speech, $500,000 given to Clinton for a speech to Bill Clinton, and then all of a sudden the country or company that paid it gets a seat at the table.
It's so in your face, but Donna Brazil says it's business as usual. Let me play this, and I'll get your reaction on the other side. Let's hear it.
This notion that somehow or another, someone who is a supporter, someone who's a donor, somebody who's an activist saying, I want access, I want to come into a room and I want to meet people, we often criminalize behavior that is normal, and I don't see what the smoke is.
Giving money and saying, I want access is normal, Julie.
Well, I said this last week and everybody got outraged, but in Washington it is normal.
But it shouldn't be. That's the point.
No, it's not.
You may not like it, but listen,
sorry,
it's not. Let me finish and say it again.
I'm so sick of this.
If I give $10,000 to a PAC and I go to a fundraiser for ex-senator, guess what? I get access to seeing him in ways that you and I wouldn't if we weren't giving that kind of money.
But if you have a business interest with China and you want to go to a meeting so you can pursue that interest and you're paying for that,
if I have legislation in front of a senator and I need to get in that senator's ear, I give a $10,000 donation to his PAC.
Yeah, I mean,
and I go to his fundraiser.
My point
that's
is,
how it works. You may not like it, but that's the way it works.
And my point is that we should change that. That's right. We may not like it. We don't like it. Basically, politicians are selling themselves like prostitutes, and we shouldn't allow that.
I agree.
Even though there may not be a bribery case on its
Politicians
face,
are selling themselves like prostitutes.
I think
I'm sorry.
there should be an investigation.
Somebody let me talk now, finally, because I actually find this wildly insulting. Okay, this is classic Clintonian. We want to make this very complicated. If you give a lot of money to the Clintons and their foundation, you get political expediency. You get lunch with the president of China for whatever reason you and your company needs.
Right.
This is not complicated.
And who knows what else?
But to blanket statements that all of the great politicians, Ben Sasse, the new senator from Nebraska, who is like the newest up-and-coming Republican senator, that somehow he can be
He doesn't take lobbyist money?
I'm sorry, but the idea that everyone is like the Clintons.
He doesn't take lobbyist money?
I don't know enough.
Of course he does.
I am not going to do this. I'm not going to sit here and blanket all of the American politicians and everyone in Washington, D.C. who are going to be as egregious with, I am going to call it bribery, like the Clintons have been for decades, which is why this scandal is exploding everywhere. And it's not happening with Ben Sasse. And again, I don't know enough about what his relationship with
lobbyists is happening.
What about
the
the fact that they wrote a letter saying they weren't going to do this?
It's not the same thing as the Clinton Foundation.
No.
We've got a judge on the couch, is it?
This is so
I don't know what you're referring to as not being the same. My point is that even if you don't have a case for bribery now, you have enough to say it needs to be looked into, and nobody's looking into it. There's not a single entity out there that's looking into it.
They just did a report on it. What do you mean nobody's looking into it?
I don't think it's not the same thing as lobbyists. When you have a foreign government, like the government of Abu Dhabi, and you have Etihad Airways giving the Clintons millions of dollars for speeches at a time that they have in front of the State Department the idea that they want to have passengers clear customs in Abu Dhabi and come straight into the U.S. It's something that flies in the face of American security. It hurts American airlines. Everyone is against it. They give this money, and then a week later, State Department approves it. I mean, that is pay-for-play against the interests of Americans.
Then the question I'm asking, because you brought up the lobbyists, Judge, that is not the same thing as having a lobbyist and a political, some sort of connection there, or is it?
No, I've always felt that if you want to get rid of political corruption in this country, you don't have a sunshine law. You have a supernova law. Everything every meeting that they have with any lobbyist is on the record in front of the world.
We all agree on that, so let's get out.
All right. I also think it's dishonest to sit here and say that every politician, every single congressperson, every single senator, every single local governor, everywhere in this country, everyone can be bought in the way that the Clintons can. I'm not going to sit here on television and renege to that and say that is how it works.
Well, I don't think that's what I said. I said politicians are. I didn't say every politician.
Let me clarify my point, if I may. If somebody's on the Armed Services Committee, for example, and that Armed Services Committee is about to award some sort of contract or some sort of appropriation or the Ways and Means Committee or anything else, and I'm a Boeing or I am any kind of American, I'm not singling them out, but I'm any kind of American enterprise and I donate a ton of money to that politician and then I get a contract, don't tell me that there's no correlation.
And that should all be public.
Because there always is.
That should not be allowed. It should not be public. We got to go.
Shouldn't be allowed.
We got to
It should be
go.
public.
You know, we're going to keep fighting about this during the break. In the meantime, Donald Trump facing backlash for his response to the shooting death of NBA star Dwayne Wade's cousin, many accusing Trump of using the situation to score political points. But his supporters say critics are missing the point that Democratic policies are destroying the inner city. So is Trump the one who can clean things up? Plus, the countdown is on to the first presidential debate, and the candidates are preparing in two very different ways. What they're doing and what we can expect.
Welcome back. A violent weekend in Chicago. We say that all too often. Police say 3 people were shot and killed and at least 18 others wounded yesterday. This comes just days after the shocking murder of NBA star Dwayne Wade's cousin, 32-year-old mom of 4, hit by stray bullets Friday while pushing her child, newborn, in a baby stroller near a school on the city's south side. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is causing a firestorm with his response to all of this on Twitter. He tweeted, Dwayne Wade's cousin was just shot and killed walking her baby in Chicago. Just what I have been saying, African Americans will vote Trump. Critics slam that tweet as insensitive, but Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey defended Trump, saying many people are missing the point.
Safer streets, they want police supported, then they should vote for Donald Trump because that's what he'll do. He'll appoint an attorney general who will send very clear messages about how law enforcement is to be pursued in this country. And quite frankly, we have seen liberal policies in cities like Chicago, like New York, and others have led to increased crime.
What kind of a world do we live in where people get more upset about a man's tweet than they do about a dead mom? Like, really, what alternate universe am I in? You're a former police officer. What are your thoughts about this?
I think the point he's making is a valid point, but he is like a bull in a china shop. I mean, he's very brash, and, you know, obviously
Tactless.
The first point that he should have made was sending out a tweet of sympathy, not
condolence.
Yeah, exactly. Not something that seems opportunistic and self-centered. Now, that being said, the point he's making is a valid point. You know, look at the situation with blacks over the last 8 years. So many of them still live in poverty. Their schools are failing, so their chances of clawing their way up the ladder of success, like other minorities get a chance to do, are diminishing. They have rampant unemployment. He's basically saying, you know what, there are some liberals who make the argument that, you know, we should change the policy with Cuba because you do the same thing year after year after year and it doesn't work. So it's time to step in and open up relations with Cuba. Well, the same argument can be made to the blacks about why do you constantly vote for a party that promises you everything and delivers nothing? Mm-hmm. And that's the point he's making. He should have made it better.
So we're gonna make a whole lot of a tweet, and yet we're going to suffer the silence from the White House on the black-on-black crime in Chicago year after year, month after month, week after week. Hashtag something out of this, BLM. Haven't seen. What your thoughts?
When I heard this yesterday, I mean, it's one of those things that you just can't imagine a young mother not even being able to walk down the street.
Or the other people who died.
Or all the other. I know, but this specific instance, there's something about it that I think I like. I had to take a breath when I first read it. And you're right, this is President Obama's hometown, and it's sort of this glaring example, all the violence that's happening in Chicago, of his failed policies. And again, I'm not, when I read Donald Trump's tweets, I agree with you that, like, I think he could show a little more sensitivity, saying I mourn for the loss of this at first, but this is something that seems to be spiraling out of control. This is a war zone that's happening in Chicago right now, and we're not addressing it.
Now, Chicago's murder rate was already high to begin with, and this year it's 30% higher than last year.
So some of what you said is echoed in another tweet by Donald Trump. He didn't stop there. He says, can we pop that up on the screen? Now that African Americans are seeing what a bad job Hillary-type policy and management has done to the inner cities, they want Trump. Melissa?
I mean, he can be tactless when he's tweeting. It doesn't change what the actual point was here. Normally, the left pivots to gun violence. This is gun violence. We have to do something about guns. But you look at Chicago, where the gun laws are incredibly strict.
Exactly.
So you don't even want to bring that up because instantly everybody's going to come back with the idea, you know, that the gun laws are really strict there. I mean, it is such a huge problem. It is so overwhelming. That part of the city has become ungovernable, and you wonder for the police force there, what can they possibly do? Something dramatic really needs to change.
Well, it's complicated because, Julie, if the police move in, we see what we saw in Baltimore with local politicians wanting to say that the citizens need room to cool off or whatever the heck the language was, but they need the protection of the very police officers that they say they have bad relationships with.
Well, there are two issues here. One is the issue that everybody on this couch brought up, which is Chicago is in a horrible situation. Something does need to be done about it. And
every weekend.
And there's no disagreement about that. There's no excuse for a major American city, one of the greatest cities in the world, to be suffering from this kind of violence, especially in the African-American community. This other point that I think we're missing here is what you did, Judge, which is you're basically explaining Donald Trump's tweet. And consistently, the problem here is somebody has to go out there who's well-meaning and explain what Donald Trump really meant. And that's
You think
terrible.
that's a bigger issue than the people who are dying on the streets of Chicago?
That's not what I'm saying at all. I said there are two separate issues. No, I said there were two separate issues. I addressed the most important one first. I'm addressing the less important one, but one that's important to people who are looking to vote for Donald Trump. You cannot go out there and have a callous disregard, as he did, and say vote Trump and somehow politicize this without at least acknowledging that there's an epidemic or a crisis going on, or at least, at the very least, expressing condolences to the family.
No, that somebody's daughter
The president has done that about his hometown?
I would hope
Have you heard the president do that?
I would hope the president has done that. If he hasn't, he should. But we're not talking about the president.
At least Trump is talking about it.
But Trump is not talking about it.
He is talking about it, and we just read the tweets saying so. At least he's talking about it. President Obama has said nothing. Hillary Clinton has said nothing, to my knowledge. At least someone is saying something about the violence that's going on.
Well, one thing I will say about the Obama administration that I've learned of late is that they have set up, post his presidency, some programs in inner cities like Chicago. I think Chicago is included on the list from talking with one of his people recently at the Democrat National Convention. But that's not the same as the president coming out on Monday morning and saying, boom, boom, boom. This is what I'm going to do. I'm in office for several more months. I'm going home. I'm going to at least...
I don't know if this is a protection of Rahm Emanuel, with whom he's very tight, or somehow politically trying to protect him, or
what
the excuse is. I have no idea what the reason is. I think he should have been more vocal. I think he should have done more. But the president's not on the ballot in November. And if you're African-American...
Oh, is that the only reason?
Can I finish my thought here? If you're African-American and you're looking to potentially vote for Donald Trump, Donald Trump is not helping his case with these people by saying, you see, I told you so, vote Trump. How about expressing some sympathy to the community? How about saying, listen, what you're undergoing on a daily basis is awful, period, full stop. None of this vote Trump, none of this wave the flag. At least acknowledge that first. And then once people start listening to you because they think you're well-meaning, then they can listen to your policies. And that's the difference right there.
It's interesting. We'll have to see what happens when he gets in front of a predominantly black or people of color audience. Hey, it can happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, but he's been certainly targeting that segment of the population with
Probably should target them in front of them and not to white.
All right, we'll move on. Donald Trump got a lot of attention for his performance during the primary, as you know, during those debates. So what can we expect when he goes head-to-head with Hillary Clinton in just a few weeks? And how is the Democratic nominee preparing? All about the prep zone. Plus...
I mean, basically we have a psychopath running for president. I mean, he meets the clinical definition, okay?
The insults from both political parties ramping up as we get closer to Election Day. Can we expect things to get even uglier before we go to the polls? And is this what voters want, or will it turn them off?
Doing it. You just don't know what he's going to say.
Oh, you hope that's true. Meantime, Clinton spokesman Brian Fallon appearing to be trying to lower expectations by tweeting, quote, for all his lack of substance, Trump's showmanship as an ex-TV star makes him a formidable debate foe. He thrashes his rivals in GOP debates. Megyn McCain, I'm going to ask you first, because you're the only one that has firsthand experience with the presidential debate. What do you believe about what these guys and gal are doing to prepare?
Well, I think it's like training an athlete, and based on the personality and strengths, you're going to surround yourself by people that are going to help you. I actually think the debates will be a big marker, and all the undecided voters will have a clear idea of who these two candidates are. I actually think Donald Trump can go in and smoke her. He did a really good job in the primary debates. She's so scripted within an inch of her life. She has to focus group whatever pantsuit she's going to wear, and he will go for the jugular. You don't know what he's going to say. You don't know what he's going to do, and I actually think it's going to be a time that I think it's going to be a real strength for him.
Harris, you laughed when he said we don't know which Trump is showing up. You said, what does he mean by that?
I actually wasn't laughing. I was curious about what he means by that. I mean, I don't know how well David Plouffe knows Donald Trump, But I think you have to, don't you have to kind of prepare for the issues? I mean, isn't that what the American public is going to be watching for? I mean, and we know it's going to get a little bit nasty because it has been from the get-go. So I don't think that that's a surprise. I don't know. I don't know how you prepare for somebody who you think is unprepared. That seems odd to me.
Yeah. Let me ask Judge real quick, because one of the things they described was like getting a lawyer getting ready to go into court and dealing with all sides. It does seem like that's a great analogy. She is a lawyer. She is incredibly predictable in these circumstances, it seems like. We know what she's going to do. We know what she's going to say. Seems like that could be an advantage.
That would be an advantage to any other normal candidate, but you just, you know, typically what happens is the other side is preparing to counter you. And Trump doesn't sound like he's really preparing to counter anything. It sounds like he basically, I don't want to say wings it, but he really is a lot more.
So you buy what David Plouffe is saying.
Yeah, see, I was going to ask Julie that.
For somebody who's not prepared?
I think they're trying.
I think he will be prepared. He
I think they're trying to get him
traditionally.
I think they're trying to get him to do the traditional preparation, but I just don't see him embracing
see, Julie, I personally am not buying that, because we've seen a different Trump the past couple of weeks, and if you notice, he's reading off a prompter and he's gotten much better at it. His prompter reading was awful. Now all of a sudden it seemed, you know, it's much smoother. I think he is preparing. What do you think?
Well, he apparently is, but he's got two things. Both of them have two things they have to worry about, right? She's got to worry about, as David Plouffe said, who's going to show up. Is it going to be unscripted Donald Trump, or is it going to be a crazy, like a Fox Donald Trump, for lack of a better word?
Better way of putting it.
Right, where he is going to be scripted, but still continue to sort of look like Maverick is not the word, but whatever the impression he tried to give during the primary was. Where he has to be concerned, and I would hope the people preparing him understand this, is he can't go too far. Because there is a subset of people watching, and especially women, and especially white women, and especially college-educated white women who should be voting Republican but are not, who will be turned off if he starts pummeling her. And you might not like that message. You might think it's sexist. You might think that because she's a woman, she shouldn't get an easier pass. All of that is true, but it nevertheless is a fact of life. So he has to be very careful as to how he's going to go after her in that sense. I would hope for his sake that he is preparing, and I would hope he's preparing substantively, but I would hope he's also preparing tonally. It's very important that he takes an appropriate tone here.
You think it's going to get nasty?
You know, I don't.
It's possible it doesn't.
It's possible it doesn't. If he's smart, it doesn't. Calling her, the way he went after Rubio, right, Lil Marco, that's not going to work going after Hillary Clinton. It's just not coming.
You don't think he'll call her
crooked Hillary. It's not. You're talking to a different audience now. It's just a one-on-one debate. I don't think anybody else is going to make it into the debate except the two of them. He's got to be very careful, and she's got to be very careful. Don't forget, she's also going to try to tweak him. She's going to try to make him go off the rails.
Absolutely.
She's probably preparing right now to just zing him just a little bit to make sure he goes off the rails. So they both need to be careful there.
It is not even Labor Day yet, and as we are seeing some of the ugliest campaign rhetoric yet, the latest from the candidates and their surrogates raising a lot of eyebrows. We debate who this may hurt the most.
The rhetoric is ramping up as we get closer to Election Day. There's a lot of name-calling from both sides. Take a listen to just some of what we heard recently, starting with President Obama's former campaign manager, David Plouffe.
Who sees people of color only as votes, not as human beings worthy of a better future. She's going to do nothing for African Americans.
There has been a steady stream of bigotry coming from him. This is someone who retweets white supremacists online.
Ku Klux Klan values, David Duke values, Donald Trump values are not American values.
Her experience is the worst thing she has going for her. Because she was a terrible Secretary of State.
All right, Melissa, I am going to go to you first. But the one thing I will say is I have my issues with Donald Trump, as you're well aware of. We've been here together a long time. Do you know what makes me want to run in voting for Trump, run into the voting booth to vote for Trump? When liberals say things like he's a psychopath, because it's so over the top, it's so dramatic, and it blankets all Republicans in this way that absolutely makes me completely insane and invalidates the core of supporters and the anger in this country. The biggest thing that makes me want to vote for Donald Trump is liberals saying things like that.
No, I mean, it's true, and I'll be out, and some people will say to me, you know, but at your heart, don't you really believe that Donald Trump is a racist? And I'm like, no, you know, but it's one of those things where the rhetoric on every side has gotten so loud. I actually think regular people are tuning out. I mean, I think when they hear the name calling, they just kind of, they don't even differentiate who's calling who, what about what. They're just sort of like, ugh, this has gone to that ugly place, and I kind of tune out. I don't know. What do you think, Judge?
I think that what makes me want to vote for either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump the most is when a celebrity says, if they get elected, I'll move out of the country.
There's that. There's that, right.
Then I'm weighing, who do I want to leave more, this one or that one? No, I think that what it does is it appeals to their core base.
Each side.
The people who really despise Hillary love to hear him trash her, and the people who really despise Trump love to hear her trash him. But they've already got those votes. So what you're doing is you're turning off the people you're trying to get, you know?
Can I institute a new rule? Could we please stop diagnosing people on national television when you're not a doctor? David Plouffe, he's not a psychopath. He doesn't meet the clinical definition. You know how I know that? Because you're not a doctor or a psychiatrist. So you don't know whether he does or he doesn't. Neither do I. Rudy Giuliani, can we please stop diagnosing Hillary Clinton's medical condition? You're also not a doctor. So please stop doing that.
And you know what's funny
is... It's really...
you just interrupted David Plouffe's lunch. He's sitting somewhere going, wait a minute.
She was on our side. I'm not a psychiatrist. That's true. And neither Rudy Giuliani is not an internist.
And you know what's funny is that sociopaths and psychopaths share a lot of common traits. And two of them that I remember from psychopaths I've had in front of me are constantly flaunts and disobeys the laws and constantly lies and deceives others. And a good argument can be made on the Trump camp that applies to the other side.
Well, why don't we just not make those kinds of diagnoses unless we're actually medically trained professionals? Because that, to me, is so irritating. And when Giuliani did that a couple of days ago, I went off the rails. And the same thing with David Plouffe. I didn't hear that until we just did the show today. But enough with the diagnosis. My God, you are a campaign professional for a living. I think he works for Uber now. Focus on that. Don't focus on somebody's psychological diagnosis.
Everybody's bumping it up. Pretty soon it'll be, she's a mass murderer.
Yeah. But everybody knows that that's the way to get your soundbite pulled out of the cycle. That's the way to nab the headline and have the conversation after that turn to whether or not that person is really like that or turn it in that direction. So it's all being done for a certain effect. I do think what it does is it turns off the average... Uh-oh. Did somebody just tweet in that I'm a psychopath?
Not only am I on my phone, but people are tweeting at me, telling me that I'm on my phone, and this is why. Because we're talking about how things are heating up, and we know that we found out, when was it, last hour, that Huma Abedin, who was the trusted confidant, advisor, and assistant to, I used a different word than you, obviously.
No name calling.
To Hillary Clinton, has separated from her husband, Anthony Weiner, after yet another sex scandal just today. And so Donald Trump, not missing that moment, quote, Huma is, this is in a statement that he just made to the New York Times.
Not a tweet, a statement.
Huma, well, it's very long. Huma is making a very wise decision. I know Anthony Weiner well, and she will be far better off without him. I only worry for the country that Hillary Clinton was careless and negligent in allowing Weiner to have such close proximity to highly classified information. Who knows what he learned and who he told? It's just another example of Hillary Clinton's bad judgment. It is possible that our country and its security have been greatly compromised by this, end quote. So you want to talk about things heating up and kind of going back and forth, Judge?
That's a personal issue between her and her husband. I wouldn't drag her and her husband's personal issue into a national security discussion, unless you have some evidence of it. If you have some evidence of it, by all means, go for it. But we seem to be really shocking.
No, I mean, I have a corollary. I have a corollary to my previous statement. Also, if you're not a trained marriage counselor, please stop talking about people's marital problems, Donald Trump, because you don't really know what goes on inside anybody else's marriage. Why is he commenting on their marriage?
The first thing I will say is that I always heard that he was persona non grata within the Clinton campaign. Anthony Weiner, like that Hillary hates him, like that was always like rumors on the internet. The other thing I will say is that this whole thing of like don't talk about their marriage, don't talk about their marriage. He was a public person. He's a pervert who continues to expose himself on social media, texting random people. I mean, it's on the cover of the New York Post today. They're both public people. She went to the Met Ball this year, you know. So the idea that they're just off limits when there's a scandal.
But claiming he has compromised national security.
No, I'll tell you why that's true. Wait, can I tell you why that's true? Because he clearly has very bad judgment, and he can't stop himself or control his impulses from sending these texts and sending these things of his naked body parts. I am.
Who's
Anthony Weiner. Who doesn't bring your work phone and your computer home?
All right. Growing backlash today against San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick.
Supposed to, I'll stand.
Kaepernick's decision not sitting well with many Americans, including one Gold Star mom who had this to say, quote, my son's blood stains the sands of Afghanistan. He died protecting the ideals of the flag you refuse to respect. He died so that ungrateful, privileged, arrogant men like you can be just that, ungrateful, privileged, and arrogant. Shame on you for disrespecting my son and his life, his sacrifice.
Yeah.
Wow.
He needs to put his bony butt back on that bench, I guess, and not play for a while.
Oh,
no,
you mean
not play for a while.
Yeah.
Where was he when the domestic violence cries were going on inside the NFL? He doesn't want to stand for women, sit for women, do anything for women. He's got to pick a category that goes with a hashtag. I live in this brown skin. I'm also a woman. If he's going to pick some causes, be consistent. Be consistent. I mean, look. My dad, others fought for the right for him to have the freedom that he has. God bless him. God bless him. But really and truly, what is he doing? There are lots of things that the NFL has in its own house. Bring it up, Flo Rida, my house. In their own house that they're not taking care of. It took them forever to get to the point where they were so arbitrary. Do we want to take away 5 games, 6? Maybe Deflategate should have a worse penalty than a guy who's accused of beating his wife and dragging her by the hair in front of elevator cameras. I mean, come on.
Yeah. First of all, amen to everything you said. However, the Gold Star mom was also right. Her son did lose blood in Iraq or Afghanistan, excuse me, because of his right to act the way he's acting. And the Judge Napolitano keeps saying this, and he's right. Whatever that phrase is, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend your
no, he's got a right.
I'll defend your right to say it. I'll fight for your right to say it. And as repugnant as what he's saying is, he still has the right to sit on that bench.
What people don't get is that right. To me, it's insulting because America is not something that just floats around in the air that you can insult. America is all of us. So just because you feel that there are some racist cops out there, you're going to insult the rest of the country. The rest of us are insulted because you feel bad.
I don't know. I mean, I think he should work on his game, too. I mean, if you're calling Kaepernick at all.
He's talking about the oppression here. Have you ever been to the Middle East? Well, I have. I can't even go out in a tank top without there being repercussions. Do you know what kind of liberties and freedoms we have in this country? It is so arrogant. I couldn't even say his name correctly. I don't pay attention to football, clearly. But all I know is that this is the type of thing that makes it seem like my generation is a bunch of arrogant, entitled snowflakes. Have respect for this flag. Have respect for the men and women who have died for us to have these freedoms. And I don't know what recourse there is, but I wouldn't buy one thing that he's attached to. I wouldn't support his team anyway.
I don't think
he's selling a lot of stuff right now anyway.
Had with domestic violence, with drug use, with everything else going on in the NFL, if he wants to sit out the flag being raised and us putting our hands over our heart, then I guess he won't ever stand again because they got enough going on in the NFL
I think he should go visit the country that I came from and see what they would do to somebody who did what he did.
Wow. We'll be right back. What a fun hour. Thanks for being here.
This has been great. Caliente. Very spicy.
Yes.
Right? We'll continue it on Outnumbered.
Yes. Facebook Live, Outnumbered FNC, and now happening now.